Welcome in, everyone, to Shot of Jack Sports. I am Jack Neary, your host. We've got Mr. Matthew Scott live with us today. We are talking fantasy football, early running back rankings 1 through 10. Before we get started, I need you guys to like and subscribe this page, share it with your friends, let them know where you're getting the best fantasy football information from. We are also partnered with theeverydayfan.com, where you get the best sports content on the web, right? You get content, you get videos.
Yeah, no, brilliant for fantasy, NFL, NBA, college, hockey, cover everything.
All right, leave your ESPN behind. Okay, leave your Fox Sports behind. Come over to theeverydayfan.com. That's where the truth about sports is coming out. Okay, we're honest.
We are fans that talk about sport and honest and unbiased, even with our own teams. We see what we see. We write as it is. We say it as it is, and we know who's good and we know who's bad.
That's right. And you know that the best you could be is honest with somebody. That's how we feel here, and that's why we're asking for you guys. All you have to do is click that subscribe button. You'll get alerts. Right? We do a video anywhere from 1 to 3 times a week. And you'll get little tidbits of information. And that way, when you show up to your draft, right, you'll show up with your chest puffed out, full of confidence, right? You don't have to worry about anything. Am I right, Matthew?
No, I agree. And now, obviously, everyone's starting now. Lots of names are out there. As you know, with you guys as well, put in 30 hours plus of 250 players across all 32 teams. And teams have changed. Team dynamics have changed. Free agency, the draft. Players are falling out of favor, QB changes, RB snaps are going to change. So I think now you really need to dig deep and understand how teams are going to operate next year. Our offensive lines have changed. Guards have moved to tackles. You've gone from gunslingers to game managers. So teams are going to be completely different. Unless you understand all the dynamics, it's going to be hard to make the right picks.
And you're right. Yeah, and we're covering it all, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot. You're right. All these changes have happened, right? The league's getting quicker, right? You've got coaches changing. There's more plays per game. You've got Swiss Army knife, players out there now instead of just, they do this or they do that.
And it's the rebirth of the hybrid back.
It is, and that's the greatest way to put it. It's the rebirth of a guy that does many different things, and we're going to go over some of them today, not all of them, but we're going to go over some of them. So make sure, guys, again, just subscribe to the page, help us out. I'm not asking for donations. We're not asking for anything. We want you to go to theeverydayfan.com and sign up there, read our content, right? Because we're putting it out there for you guys, and all you have to do is click the button and subscribe. It's not really asking much, right? And it helps you. And it helps us. And
it's great to chat with your mates, listen to the podcast, listen to the news, chat with your mates at work, and have that inside knowledge for when you are drafting. You can, if your league's got 10 players in, 12, 14, you've already got an idea of who you want, no matter how deep your league is.
Exactly. I'm 100%. So without further ado, here's how we're going to do it, guys. Matthew's going to give you a couple of his, and then I'm going to give you a couple of mine, and we're going to debate this. Okay, so Matthew, I would like you to start. Give us 10 through 7.
Right. So number 10 for me, and I know obviously our previous chats as well, I'm going with J.K. Dobbins. This guy last year was 134, 805, 9, 6 yards per carry, 5 games over 70 yards, but only 8 of his games did he have double-digit carries. Mark Ingram's gone, but it wasn't much of a factor. But the big reason why I have this guy as number 10 is Lamar Jackson rushing the ball last year. As we know, him and Kyler Murray for fantasy yards, for rushing yards. 159, 1005, and 7. As all the news is dictating, they want Lamar Jackson to be more of a pocket passer next year. So that means those yards and those carries have to go somewhere. And they are going to J.K. Dobbins. Gus Edwards was 114.7236 last year. I don't see much of an increase on him. He'll continue to be a solid back, but J.K. Dobbins is flying up that board. of that
Okay, so
ADP
let me get this. So J.K. Dobbins had 134 carries last year, correct?
Yeah, for 805 yards and 9 touchdowns.
And 9 touchdowns.
Yes.
Okay, and that's, for all you guys that don't, J.K. Dobbins was the Ohio State product that the Baltimore Ravens drafted, and they eased him in, right? Because they didn't want to run the wheels off their rookie. But you believe that he makes the jump here in his second year.
The second year, I think they'll do the opposite, where they talked that they were running back by committee, where CH last year was meant to be the guy, great start, his first ever game, 134 yards, and then he kind of fell off a little bit.
Okay.
I think now Lamar Jackson's being protected more. They've got Sammy Watkins in there, and they've got some, and that receiving core. I think they want to pass the ball more. They want to be better at moving the ball and not relying on the run. But you need Lamar Jackson to stay fit, and you need Lamar Jackson to have a prolonged career, especially if you want to pay him big money. Okay. So they're going to have to look at a way of making him more of a pocket passer. That the offensive line is a very good offensive line. They need to trust that more, and that's the reason why J.K. Dobbins is going to take a massive jump of being the guy.
So here's my question. Okay, I like all that. Actually, you sold me on that. That was excellent. So guys, I hope you're paying attention. Matthew's got J.K. Dobbins finishing as a top 10 fantasy football. This is early, though. It could change, right? We're subject to mini camp changes and such. But so how many carries do you see him getting? Is he a 190 or is he going to crest over 200?
I think he could be 200 because when he runs the ball, he's a tough runner. But also he's quick, but he's not super quick. But he's very, very good at grinding out those extra yards. So Lamar Jackson won't have to put his body on the line. So if you continue to get 6 yards a run, that's extremely productive for a running back.
Yeah,
and you give him the ball 15 times, let him wear the defense down. The passing game is going to open up. There's going to be separation. They're going to use blitzes. They're going to use boxes, and it's going to open the game up for Lamar Jackson to have those extra few seconds, especially if you line him up as a receiving back, which he can pass the ball, but just give him the option of what are they going to do? Bit of play action, but that's where I think the game opens up for Lamar Jackson to be a guy that can pass for 40 touchdowns, but you need a running game that scares people, or you need J.K. Dobbins to be that decoy back that can destroy you.
Okay, no, I like it. I actually you sold that pick excellently. All right, what do you got at 9?
Aaron Jones. So last year, Aaron Jones, as we know, 201, 1104, 5.5, 9 touchdowns, 300-yard games, 5 over 90 yards. And passing 63 targets, 47 receptions, 355 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. I think with Jordan Love being the guy, he's going to have to shoulder a lot more responsibility next year, especially with Jamal Williams gone. AJ Dillon's going to step up. AJ Dillon's going to have a massively improved season, but I just see there's going to be a lot of passes to the backfield. Aaron Jones could easily get 100 targets next year. And that just gives him the extra value. He could easily get 1-3 on the ground. He could get 500 to 600 plus rushing yard games as well. But he's a guy for me, a lot of people are going to forget about because they won't like the offense because of Jordan Love.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't look. They drafted Jordan Love for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so they drafted
first rounder, and first rounder is unknown quantity, and as you'll see from the reports the articles that I do, he's very, very inaccurate on deep balls. When he does connect, he's had 23 touchdowns in the last 2 seasons at college, but he's also missed a lot of deep balls as well. So the issue is, can he connect with Devontae Adams down the field? Can he get to MVS? Lazard can Lazard find his pace again, and will he be good in traffic? So there's lots of questions of how much can the receivers help Jordan Love to find the confidence.
I actually read something the other day. It was interesting. I was reading on the everydayfan.com that he got so hot during practice, Jordan Love, that they started running blitz schemes at him. So for me, that's kind of interesting. Like Jordan Love has not shied away from, the spotlight. I was drafted pretty high that I should do the job. I remember when he was drafted, they said he has an arm comparable to a Patrick Mahomes. And that doesn't mean he's Patrick Mahomes, but when we start mentioning that the arm is hot, and that he can hit these guys, I do think they will take some responsibility away from him, but he's gonna get hot. Like there's no mistake, and this kid's gonna sling the ball. And I'm starting to warm up to the fact that he could be something for Green Bay. And Aaron Jones at 9, I'm okay. That's not too much. Okay, who do you got at 8?
I've got Zeke Elliott. I had Zeke Elliott last year in the draft, and he struggled immensely in terms of his production. He only had 5 games over 85 yards last year, 244, 979, 4 yards a carry, which is worse than his career, and 6 touchdowns are worse than his career as well. The offensive line was banged up. Andy Dalton was in, and the offense did not look right. And I think now they've got the guys back. Dak Prescott is back. I think he goes back to being Zeke again.
So 244 rushing attempts. So they still gave him the ball. Okay, he still getting the volume. Okay, they're still feeding him.
The offensive line just couldn't block well enough for him.
Right. 979 yards is a joke, though.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be fair. 6 touchdowns. I mean, that's probably because you're not in the red zone. The offense wasn't good, like you said, but he wasn't good to start the year off either. I don't know whether he came into camp out of shape. Maybe he's getting fed too much somewhere else. It would be nice.
The big issue for the Cowboys is that secondary was awful. Even before Dak Prescott got injured, the Cowboys and the Falcons were giving up 30 points plus every game. So you had to abandon the run. So effectively what they need to do is they'll get beat with deep balls. The linebackers weren't creating enough pressure. They need to go back to what the Cowboys are good at and condensing the field, putting the quarterback under pressure, using their edge rushers. If they can take the pressure of Dak Prescott so he doesn't have to throw the ball 45, 50 times a game, then it gives Zeke away back in to be that main guy again. But unfortunately, his role was limited because when you're 3 touchdowns down by halftime, running the ball doesn't make much difference.
No, I totally agree with you. All right, so here's I'll give you mine. I'll give you my 10. Yeah. Here's my number 10. And my number 10 rings true to your number 8. I've got a Zeke Elliott at 10. Okay, I've got a Zeke Elliott 10 because I can't confidently sit here and tell you that Zeke Elliott's going to go for 1,200 yards. I can't do that. If he comes in shape and he's doing all the right things, then fine. But I'm not going to tell you a guy that got 979 yards last year on a full workload and only got 8 touchdowns. And by the way, they weren't a great 8 touchdowns either. I'm not gonna move him above 10. I think he's value there. I think that he will get drafted, but in fantasy football mock drafts, I think he'll go around 6 or 7. I don't think he'll fall to 10, but I'll take him.
I've seen him go at 13.
Well, then that's fine. But I do believe the name is going to start gaining momentum as we head forward.
Yeah.
At number 9. At number 9, I've got David Montgomery. And here's how I'll defend that position. The Bears, Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles and whoever you had for the Bears last year, it didn't matter. David Montgomery, who was being drafted super late, right, finished with 210 fantasy football points. He finished the top 6 back. Okay, here were his numbers. 247 carries, so we're getting Zeke volume. We went over 1,000 yards. We went 1,070. 4.3 yards per carry behind a line. I like the way he fights through contract, right? 8 touchdowns. That's just rushing touchdowns. Here's what else he gave you. 54 receptions, 438 receiving yards, and an extra 2 touchdowns. So for me, I like David Montgomery at 9 And David Montgomery is going to be a forgotten man behind players like Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Miles Sanders and Joe Mix. And you know what? That's great. That's great. Those players, those names might go above Montgomery. But my whole point is Montgomery is a good running back, and I think he's getting an upgrade at quarterback for all the shade Justin Fields got. That kid's going to be ready.
Yeah, I agree. But if you're in a position, say you're in the fourth, fifth round, would you rather have Joe Mixon or David Montgomery?
David Montgomery.
Because I'm not a big Joe Mixon fan. I like Joe Mixon because I think he has very little competition at Cincinnati.
I think I don't think
David
Joe Mixon's going to fall there.
David has Damian Williams and Tariq Cohen.
I don't think that's Tariq Cohen is he's a hybrid back, and he doesn't really necessarily steal a lot. And what do we like? Tariq Cohen's been there the whole time. David Montgomery in his freshman season in the NFL had 242 carries, and this year he got 247. I don't think he's going to lose carries. I think they like him as a bruising back, and he runs like a punisher.
Well, what's your take on Damian Williams? We know he made big plays for the Chiefs. How much of an impact do you see Damian Williams having?
About the same impact that LaShawn McCoy had in Kansas City last year.
Because I can see him getting 700 yards on the ground.
Not at all. He's not. He's never been a starting running back, really.
No, but he's efficient with his touches. He's a guy that doesn't need to be in there for 15. You can give him 12 touches, and he'll give you a big play, which is how he's been his whole career.
Sure. I mean, just because James White's efficient doesn't mean I don't like New England running backs. You know.
But no, I've had David Montgomery in the past. He's stung me. He's had good weeks. He's had bad weeks. Efficiency is my issue with him.
We're talking about the future and the most recent past. The most recent past, he's been good, right?
Yeah. Well, he's young enough to be in a position where, a bit like Devin Singletary, he's got to make a big step this year.
I mean, Devin Singletary is not even close to what David Montgomery's done.
They're both backs, had loads of carries that have had efficiency issues.
Devin Singletary, I believe, finished 27th in fantasy football last year. And, you know, Chicago blamed the line. The line got a little bit better, and so did David Montgomery. So anyway, that's what I got. I got David Montgomery at 9. What's going on?
Yep.
I've got Aaron Jones.
I'm not, yeah.
I've got Aaron Jones at 8. Okay. 201 rushing attempts, 1,104 yards, 5.5 yards per average per carry. You're looking at 9 touchdowns, 47 receptions, 355 yards receiving, and he gave you an extra 2 touchdowns there. Now, the year before last year, Aaron Jones went absolutely berserker. Okay, he went crazy town. I think he had like 16 touchdowns. It was just, you know, Aaron Jones everywhere. And even if Aaron Rodgers, like we both said, let's say Aaron Rodgers isn't there this year, you know, let's say he's you know, describing the next contestant or wherever he ends up. I still do believe that Aaron Jones is going to have value in Matt LaFleur's backfield. He has to. And with that value is going to come about the same amount of rushing attempts. He's not going to be a monster. He's going to get about 200 rushing attempts, which is where I see that's where I see Aaron Jones being. I see about 200 rushing attempts, and I like that you have J.K. Dobbins at 10, because J.K. Dobbins, to me, I don't know if he really goes over 200, but I think his ceiling rushing attempts is right about where Aaron Jones at. But if he becomes that guy, if they let J.K. Dobbins go, I think he could put up numbers like Aaron Jones. And then who knows? Maybe he does sneak himself right where you have him. I actually like Now that you sold me a little bit on that, I just couldn't move him ahead of Zeke. And our only discrepancy, right? Our only argument so far is that I like David Montgomery over J.K. Dobbins, right?
What's your? This is one concept that I had when I was putting Aaron Jones in. AJ Dillon is very good. Where do you see AJ Dillon fitting in terms of carries this year? Is he 100 to 120, or can he push the 150 mark?
I don't. That all depends on how good you think that Green Bay is going to be.
Well, Jamal Williams was 119, 505, 4.2, and two touchdowns last year. He's better than Jamal Williams. So I think he could be pushing at least the 130 mark.
But how good is Green Bay going to be? Because he's not going to get carries if they're losing. He's not going to get carries if they're losing. And that's what
if you were to call it now, under Jordan Love, what would be a good record to finish on?
For the Green Bay Packers?
Yeah.
I think 8-8 is a successful season. That's for me. I think 8-8 is a successful season.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
So
if you are Matt LaFleur, would you want to run the ball? Or would you be trying to pass the ball to get a lead, and then if you're in the lead, then use the running game? Because this is what I'm thinking now is where the Ravens would do it the opposite way around. They use the run to control the game. If you're the Packers, you probably want to go with Jordan Love. You probably want to go in the lead a little bit early. So you probably want to take a few risks. And that's my only issue with that could affect AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones is how much do they want to buy into the run early?
I don't think Green Bay's offensive line is good enough for how big AJ Dillon is. First of all, I don't think he's Derrick Henry yet. I do believe that it's got to be Aaron Jones, and that's the way it's got to be.
Okay.
Give us your next.
Like I said, we're doing well. My next ones. So I've got Jonathan Taylor, 232, 1169. 5.9 and 11 touchdowns. Of those, 80 games of so 6 games of 80 yards plus 3 games over 100 yards, and he had a game for 150 and 253 last week of the season. So this guy is huge. They've got Marlon Mack, which isn't really. They brought him back on a $3 million 1-year deal. So he's not much of a threat to them after obviously suffering an injury early last year. Naheem Hines is a pass catching back. So I just think Jonathan Taylor becomes the man, and we'll be looking in 2 seasons' time, and this guy will be the best running back in the league.
So you've got him at your 7th position, correct?
7th, yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure for the audience. I want them to know exactly where you're at. So you've got Jonathan Taylor at 7.
Yeah, and having Carlos Wentz as your quarterback definitely allows him to be able to run the ball more, because when Carlos Wentz is confident playing well, he's a very good, accurate quarterback.
Sure he is. Carson Wentz is fantastic. I'm all in on Carson Wentz.
So the next one I've got at 6 is Dalvin Cook. I think obviously Alexander Mattison over the last 2 years has mustered 96 rushing attempts and 100 rushing attempts. I don't see a major change in that this year. I think he'll be around. When there's games Dalvin Cook misses, might be 1 or 2 a year max, but not enough to make a big impact. And he was 312, 1557, 5 yards a carry, 16 touchdowns rushing, and 54, 44, 361 and 1 on the ground. 8 games over 100 yards rushing the ball, and 4 games over the 40 yards receiving last year as well. And I just think it's between. I had to pick between him and Alvin Kamara, obviously for 5 and 6. But I just think Alvin Kamara is a better receiving running back.
It's okay. So to be clear, for Dalvin Cook, that's 312 rushing attempts.
Yes, and 1157, and I don't see him going over that.
1,557 yards and 16
5 yards to
touchdowns.
carry, 16 TDs.
Okay, and you have him at 6, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Alvin Kamara, which was 187,932 and 16, and 83,756 and 5 in the passing game. 5 games over 80 yards rushing, only 1 game over 100 yards, and 9 games over 40 yards receiving. So the only reason I put Alvin Kamara over him is that they have lost Drew Brees, and I think Jameis Winston will be the guy that will probably start this year, and he's going to be reliant on him being a focal point of the offense through the backfield, finding the holes. But I think he can extend plays, so I think you'll see plenty of games where he's getting 7-8 targets, 50, 60 yards on the ground.
Okay, so that's 7, 6, and 5, right?
Right. Yep.
Okay. So guys, I'm going to give you my 7th, 6th, and 5th as well. If you like the information that you're hearing from me, myself, and Mr. Matthew Scott, make sure that we're subscribing and we're going over to the everydayfan.com. I just want to make sure we're doing all of those things. That way we can get this information, because we're going to be doing receivers, quarterbacks. We're going to be updating these lists throughout the summer. That way you have the best content you can have. It's interesting. Great minds think alike, right? And we've looked at the numbers, and we really haven't had many discrepancies. At 7, I've got Jonathan Taylor as well. Okay. Jonathan Taylor last year he flew underneath the radar. I understand we're into all these sexy picks, the Miles Sanders, the Swifts, the Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But let's talk about Jonathan Taylor just for a minute. 232 rushing attempts. I want that in my running back. 1,169 yards. We're over 1,000 yards per attempt. 5. I like 5. 11 touchdowns. Okay, we got double-digit touchdowns. 36 receptions, 299 yards. Let's call it 300. Give him an extra yard. It doesn't hurt anybody. And he got a touchdown, right? So he had a total of 12 touchdowns. Right? Yeah, let's just give it to him. Jonathan Taylor flew underneath the radar. And everyone want to talk about Indy's defense and, look at what Phillip Rivers is doing, all these things. But let's be honest, Jonathan Taylor as a rookie was a big part of that. It was a real big part of that. I have him at 7, and if you wanted, you can argue him.
The big thing for Jonathan Taylor was last season. It was meant, but prior to Marlon Mack getting injured, they were going to be a 1-2 punch. He was never expected to take the load that he had, because Marlon Mack was going to. They were both meant to be the featured back. Marlon Mack getting injured early into the season was a godsend for fantasy owners for Jonathan Taylor, because suddenly he became the guy, and he cemented the fact that he's an RB1 now, which means Marlon Mack is very undesirable in fantasy football, because it'll be hard for him to fight his way back.
You hear that, Mrs. Mack? Your boy is undesirable. I kid. All right, after Jonathan Taylor, this is where you and I separate a little. Okay, at 6, I've got Nick Chubb. Okay, and you can argue up for Nick Chubb if you wanted, but my issue is that last year Nick Chubb finished 9th in fantasy football, and he probably should have, with 191 fantasy points, he should have ended up higher, but he got banged up. At 10, Kareem Hunt finished with 180 points, and you can argue that that could shake out the same way again. Maybe Chubb plays all of the games. Maybe they switch up backfields. I'm saying that Cleveland's not losing a lot having Kareem Hunt start, and it's a longer season. And I believe that you can take Hunt a little later.
And they didn't really include the receiving corps.
Right. I think you could take Hunt a little bit later and get Chubb value. But let's go over Nick Chubb's points for last year. Okay. 190 rushing attempts, 1,067 yards, a monstrous 5.6 yards a carry. That guy's giving you a first down every 2 times he touches the ball. 12 touchdowns, 16 receptions for 150 yards and no touchdowns. He doesn't give you a lot through the
12
air.
touchdowns, but 12 rushing touchdowns, though.
Right. So you know what you're getting with him. He's not the Army knife, but he sheds tacklers.
And 100 plus yards rushing games.
Right. And that's huge. Yeah, because he's consistent.
Yeah.
My fifth, and it hurt me to put him here. I wanted him a little bit higher. But right now, this is where I have him because I'm unsure about what this team's going to look like besides Sean Payton. Okay. At 5, I've got Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara last year gave you 187 rushing attempts with 932 yards and 5 yards a carry and 16 touchdowns. And yes, Alvin Kamara gives you monster games. There are spots in his season, though, where he tends to disappear. So just understand that there's going to be a 1 or 2 or 3 week gap, usually between week 8 and 11, where Alvin Kamara just falls off. It happens every year to him. He gave you 83 receptions for 756 receiving yards and another 5 touchdowns. Yes. Okay. Yes, America. A guy that's gotten 21 touchdowns last year, I've got in my 5th spot. And that's because I don't believe in Jameis Winston. I don't know if he supports a number 1 running back. I'm not sure he makes it as a starting quarterback the whole season. A little part of me believes that Sean Payton took Ian Book out of Notre Dame in the 4th round because of his smarts and what he can get out of him. Oh, but he doesn't have a cannon. I know. Drew Brees didn't have a cannon either, but he knew the offense and he was efficient and he was smart. Okay, so this is an indictment more on Jameis Winston than it is Alvin Kamara. But we'll see. He might move up my list as we move further.
And the big question, and the big question regarding Alvin Kamara is, outside of Michael Thomas, how much do you trust Traquan Smith and Deontay Harris?
I don't. I don't even know if the guy that's throwing them the ball is going to be efficient. The 30 for 30 season happened. If we keep turning the ball over, there's not going to be time to run it.
Yeah.
That's up to 5 right now. So we gave before you guys even did anything, right? Before you subscribed, before you went over and looked anything, we gave you 5 running backs that are going to be surefire. They're going to have good seasons. My recap so far is 10, Ezekiel Elliott, followed by 9, David Montgomery. 8, I've got Aaron Jones. 7, I've got Jonathan Taylor. 6, I've got Nick Chubb. And Alvin Kamara's at 5. Matthew, run through your 5 real quick.
J.K. Dobbins at 10, Aaron Jones at 9, Zeke Elliott at 8, Jonathan Taylor at 7, Dalvin Cook at 6, and Alvin Kamara at 5.
So we differ on a few guys, but not very many.
And this is where we do have players that we do differ. So my 4 to 2 is Nick Chubb at number 4. 190, 106.7, 5.6 and 12, 600 plus yard games. If he can be fully fit for 16 games, he's easily going to be a top 4, maybe top 3 running back. I've got Derrick Henry at number 3. As we know, 378, over 2,000 yards, 17 touchdowns, 10 games of 100 yards plus, and 3 of 200 yards plus. Enough said, this guy is the real deal. He's the best downhill runner in the game. Nick Chubb is good, but this guy is a one-man army. And then number 2 for me is Saquon Barkley. Missed, obviously, early on, ACL, MCL, knee injury. He's come back. He's still young. First 2 seasons was phenomenal. Set a rookie record back in 2018. This guy is the real deal. And his 217, 1003 and 6, and then 73, 52, 438 and 2 in 2019. Great stats, but he goes back to his rookie year 2018 stats. 10 and 4 games over 100 yards in 2019, but he's getting at least 6 or 7 in 2021. Yeah,
I mean, and at this point, I had Chubb down a little bit further. I have Saquon Barkley there, and we have a bit of a difference here. So I'm going to go
as
over.
We know, I don't trust Daniel Jones, and I think the only way Daniel Jones becomes an efficient quarterback is if Saquon Barkley can dominate on both sides of the ball, pass receiving and rushing the ball. And he has got to be included at least 20, 25 times in the game to give Daniel Jones that chance.
And I think he will be. I think, listen, Saquon Barkley, they want to give Saquon Barkley the ball. I mean, so here's what I've got. My 4. And you guys, you can push back. I'm okay with it. At 4, I've got Christian McCaffrey. Obviously, we got banged up last year. He had 59 rushing attempts, 225 yards, 5 touchdowns, a touchdown receiving, 149 yards. It was a tough year for Mr. McCaffrey. But we know what Christian McCaffrey is.
Thousand back.
Right, sure. Under a good quarterback, under an efficient quarterback. And why he's so far down is the same reason why I've got Alvin Kamara far down. I don't know what we're getting at quarterback. I'm not a Sam Darnold truther, and I know they're out there. I understand that what Brady is going to do with him at Carolina as the offensive coordinator is just remake him into Andrew Luck, and the Jets are going to go crying all the way home that they let him go.
That's not happening.
Except I don't believe it. Yes, I don't believe it. Yeah. And I want to see how tough life is when you got 8 and 9 men boxes and they're just running right at McCaffrey. Now, I do believe that Brady will add some imagination and Darnold will be fine. Okay, but I think that you'll have a fine season from McCaffrey. I don't think it's going to be blockbuster. That's what I have at 4. I've got McCaffrey at 4. I've got Saquon Barkley at 3. Why read his stats off when there were they were so minimal last year? Saquon Barkley does need to bounce back. He's been in the gym. His ceiling's super high. We know what we're getting out of Saquon Barkley. I'm not going to spend time trying to sell you on the man with the greatest quads on the planet. Mm-hmm. At 2, I've got Dalvin Cook.
I thought we were talking about Mike Davies. He's got the greatest quads, doesn't he, now?
Oh, yeah, he's got great quads. Yeah, he's going to be rehabbing too. At 2, I've got Dalvin Cook. And Dalvin Cook, I feel like he doesn't get any love. I really do. Everybody wants to talk about how great McCaffrey is and how fantastic Barkley is. And, Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara had 294 fantasy points last year and finished number 2. Dalvin Cook had 293 fantasy points last year. I mean, there's not this huge difference. And Dalvin Cook, here's his numbers: 312 rushing attempts. Oh, but is it a timeshare? No, it's not. It's not. 312 rushing attempts. That's that. I mean, I don't know what kind of bell cow you guys want. He's a bell cow. Okay. 1,557 rushing yards. He averaged 5 yards a carry. 16 touchdowns. Oh, can this guy get some Twitter mention? 44 receptions, 361 yards. That's over 1,800 yards total, right? And he gave you a touchdown receiving too. Dalvin Cook gets no love. Everyone wants to talk about CMC. They want to talk about Alvin Kamara. They want to talk about Saquon Barkley.
Dalvin Cook and Derrick Henry are in the perfect situation where both their quarterbacks are efficient because they're not gunslingers. Kirk Cousins and Ryan Tannehill are efficient passing the ball because they only have to pass the ball 32 times a game. They only need 22 to 25 completions a game. So the receivers take a bit of the hit, but Dalvin Cook and Derrick Henry are always going to be the guy that control the game.
Oh, you're just helping me. And they're in the perfect situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got so just to recap, at 4, I've got Christian McCaffrey. I've got Saquon Barkley at 3. And I've got after the past 2 seasons, I'm convinced Dalvin can cook. He's at number 2 for me. I'm done with
and
the disrespect.
Is the 312 the ceiling, or do you think he can get more?
I think that's right where he wants to be. I'm fine with that being the ceiling. Ezekiel Elliott went over 300 a little bit, but not by much. And last year he gave you 244. Anything over 240 to me is a bell cow.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So 312. I mean, I don't need you to get me 380. I don't need all those touches. That's insane. For me, I don't need it. Okay. Would you like to continue with your? Who do you have at number 1?
I have CMC at number 1 because of the QB situation. My thinking was opposite to you. I think I'm not sold on Sam Darnold. Everything goes through CMC, and he like I say, got injured early on, but he's 1,000 back. He's one of the best hybrid backs in the league. Obviously, hit between him and Barkley, and it changed from game to game. But I just see CMC continuing to get 5-6 receiving targets. A guy that's going to rush the ball 15 times, but he is just that good that he can win a game for the Panthers by himself. And that's the reason why you've got to have him as number 1.
Could Darnold's accuracy hurt him?
No, because he's passing into the backfield, or he's passing the ball 5 yards ahead of him.
No, but if he can't stretch, if he can't drive linebackers and safeties back, they're just going to creep up and steal all that space. That was my only thing.
Yeah, well, I just think he's very, very good at both. Him and Barkley are good at changing negative plays to positive yards. And I think you've got to look at the side of Barkley knows Daniel Jones. I can't be too far in front. I just have to find a little bit of separation and then find a lane. And CMC is going to have to kind of rethink a little bit and go, do you know what? Give me a couple of yards. I'll find some separation. I'll extend the play as much as I can. But he'll move the chains. But it's going to be harder to get those yards, but he'll find a way.
Okay. All right.
And your number 1?
My number 1 is the real king, King Henry. I mean, Derrick Henry, and that's another one. It's been Barkley and CMC and Kamara get the love, and at the end of the day, we got to start disrespecting guys that don't have the fanciest names. Derrick Henry, 378 rushing attempts. Jeez. Okay. 2,027 yards, 5.4 yards per attempt, 17 touchdowns.
And 3 games over 200 yards plus.
Yeah, not much of a receiver. He gave you 19 receptions, 114 yards, and no touchdowns. But I think the addition of Julio Jones makes linebackers have to back up. It makes safeties have to be more aware, and it gives Derrick Henry more space. And my prediction this year is that Derrick Henry breaks the rushing record.
Yes, I agree on that.
I think he could break the rushing record. And if Derrick Henry breaks the rushing record, that's 17 touchdowns. Could very well go north. I think
be 22, 23.
23. Yeah. I think what you're looking at here is a Todd Gurley 3-year run of just absolutely obliterating the competition.
Yeah. No, I agree 100% on that. I think it's hard to call between Henry, Barkley, and CMC.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to stick with the guy that I know is in a good offense. I don't have any questions about what Derrick Henry's about to produce this year. I will say that he's a slow starter, but once he gets rolling,
he gets hot. He gets hot mid-season to the end of the season when you need him to be hot.
Right. And you know, I'm sick of disrespecting or him getting the disrespect to Dalvin Cook. In fact, on the everydayfan.com fantasy Twitter, I ran a poll today, and the question was, who would you rather have in a standard league, Dalvin Cook or Saquon Barkley? And I'll tell you what, Dalvin Cook is currently leading that poll.
I went with Barkley on that one. I'll be honest.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm just saying, Dalvin Cook is starting to finally get some fantasy love. Do you want to mention a couple guys that weren't on our top 10, but you want to tease a guy for next week?
Yeah, I mean, Josh Jacobs straight away for me. He's a guy where bit of a slow year last year, good rookie year, bad offensive line, 273, 1065, 12 touchdowns, and 7 games over 70 yards plus. And I think the Raiders didn't really upgrade their receiving core, and I think he continues to be the focal point of the offense. So I think Josh Jacobs could be that guy where he could be finished between 18 to 10, but he needs a couple of big games to give him that push to finish in the top 10.
I'm going to step outside. What I had written down is my honorable mention. I like guys that compete. You know that. I like guys that work for jobs. I like guys that try they just go out there and they just put in more effort than everybody else. That's what I like. You know, if you guys are ever wondering what my channel's about or you know, guys that I'm going to root for, it's always the guy putting in extra time and working a little bit harder. It's always going to be that guy. So with I could talk about other guys that are getting jobs, right? Based on, you know, they have no competition, but I like competition. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to mention real quick, honorable mention, James Robinson in Jacksonville. Because James Robinson finished,
No, best waiver wire pickup last year apart from Justin Herbert.
Yeah, James Robinson beat out everybody. He beat out everybody. And not only did he beat out everybody, Jacksonville wasn't this like fantastical team. You know, they had a tough year. And listen, Minshew, Magic, and all that other stuff aside, James Robinson gave you 200 fantasy points. Now you get Trevor Lawrence. Now you got Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne is being brought in as almost a hybrid, you know, a running back / wide receiver. And let's not forget, he'll hit a rookie wall. He'll absolutely hit a rookie wall. So, I mean, James Robinson's going to be dropping.
How do you see the snap playing out? This is my biggest question with James Robinson, because I had to drop him my list this year, and I would still pick him up. How do you see this snap share playing itself out in 2021?
I think it plays out a little bit like Cleveland. I think that James Robinson's the running back there, and I think that Travis Etienne will be he'll be the hybrid, but he's not going to oversnap Robinson. And the reason, even though he's good friends with Lawrence, I just think that Etienne's going to hit a rookie wall. It's a tougher league. All those other things are going to go to account. And I believe that James Robinson's a tough back. I mean, go watch his highlights. That guy's a really tough back. And I think that because competition's coming in, you know, people are nervous for him and they don't want to keep him high on their lists. And I'm telling you that James Robinson is all about competition. Like, bring it. Let's have it. Who's the better running back in the room?
And do the Jags break the 1,500 rushing yard mark this year as a combined team?
Yeah, I think so.
Which is big, because them and the Lions did struggle to run the ball in games. But if they can get to the 1.5-1.6 mark, it puts them somewhere as being an average rushing team. Yeah.
So any final thoughts, Matthew?
No, I'm looking forward to is it QBs next week, or we're doing wide receivers or QBs next week?
I want to listen. It's a passing league, and there are an abundance of quarterbacks. But next week, we're gonna do wide. We got wide receivers coming for you guys. We got wide receivers. There's just so much to talk about. There's so many wide receivers, but we're only gonna give you 10 right now.
Oh,
I'm not giving you any more than 10.
I don't like when you put me under pressure for 10.
This list has got to be tight. And then we're going to come back and we're going to give you running backs that we like again. We'll get into tight ends. The fantasy offseason is only in its infancy, and I promise you we are marching on with.
And we're looking forward to the mock draft that we do as well to see how that plays out, tactic-wise, schedule-wise, who we like, and how to fill your later roster picks as well and get that winning team.
Mock drafts are coming, everybody. I hope you're practicing. Enjoy your night, everybody.
And you. Great. Speak to you soon, Jack. See you. Bye.